Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we are cracking open a question that's, well, it's been central to human thought for centuries. It's theological, sure, but also really personal. How do you, as a sincere believer, square the profound, sometimes exclusive truth claims of your own faith miracles, a specific path to salvation, with the fact that there are billions of other people out there, people who are just as ethical, just as sincere, but follow completely different traditions?
Yeah, and that challenge, it's not just abstract, is it? It's like an intellectual earthquake. Think about it historically. When cultures first really encountered each other, they found these incredibly sophisticated, thriving religious systems totally separate from their own.
Right.
And thinkers realized, okay, we need some kind of logical framework here.
Yeah.
It basically forces two huge philosophical questions onto the table. First, epistemology. How do we even know it's true?
Right.
And second, ethics. How should we actually interact with people who believe differently?
And just to be clear, oh friend, we are absolutely not here today to debate which religion is right. Our goal, our mission for this deep dive is really to analyze the three major logical solutions, these intellectual frameworks that thinkers across the globe have developed to handle this exact problem of religious diversity.
That's right. We're treating these major world religions almost like intellectual hypotheses tested against experience, reason, and evidence, if you will. And these three frameworks offer coherent, logically consistent answers, even though they're radically different from each other. They're essentially the conceptual tools people use to navigate all this uncertainty. And understanding them is, I think, crucial for getting a handle on the history of interfaith relations, both conflict and peace.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Where do we start? Maybe with the one that feels logically the simplest, but maybe ethically the most demanding?
Exclusivism.
Exclusivism.
Yeah.
The position that says, pretty plainly, only our path leads to salvation. It draws a really sharp line.
Yeah. It does. And the logic behind it, well, it's grounded in something very solid. The principle of non-contradiction.
Okay, like in basic logic.
Exactly. If truth with a capital T is objective, absolute. And if religion A claims X is the unique ultimate path to salvation, while religion B claims Y is that unique path, well, logically, both statements cannot be fully simultaneously true.
Right. One has to be wrong, or at least less right.
Precisely. So this view demands absolute intellectual fidelity to the specific claims of one's own faith. It kind of mirrors that scientific idea of falsification, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. If your evidence points strongly to hypothesis A, you have to logically reject not A. And proponents would argue this isn't about arrogance.
No, they say it's about intellectual honesty. It's about being true to what you genuinely believe is the ultimate truth.
And this isn't just an abstract idea. It's often rooted very firmly in specific scriptures.
Oh, absolutely. For Christians, the classic foundational text is John 14:6. Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." It's very clear, very exclusive.
An exclusive gate, yeah. And you find parallels in other traditions, too.
Definitely. In Islam, for instance, Quran 3.85 is often brought up. And whoever desires other than Islam as religion, never will it be accepted from him, and he, in the hereafter, will be among the losers.
Wow, okay, so very direct.
Very direct. And historically, you can see how this kind of firm stance was actually crucial for early movements. Think about early Christianity during the Roman persecutions.
Right.
They insisted they possessed the true philosophy against this backdrop of Roman polytheism. That conviction gave them cohesion, courage.
Here's the big but, isn't it?
Yeah.
The critical challenge that exclusivism really has to wrestle with, it's that ethical bombshell. What about the virtuous outsider? The incredibly ethical Buddhist, the devout Sikh, the compassionate atheist even, who lives a life of profound moral goodness, but maybe never even heard your specific message or heard it and didn't accept it.
That's the agonizing question for the exclusivist. From their perspective, that person might be a wonderful neighbor, a great person. But when it comes down to the ultimate question, the path to salvation, they're seen as fundamentally misguided.
So the cost of that intellectual certainty is potentially condemning billions of sincere people.
It implies that, yes. And how does the exclusivist explain the genuine miracles or powerful spiritual experiences reported in other faiths? Well, often they're framed as maybe coincidence or psychological phenomena.
Right.
Or in more traditional interpretations, sometimes even as potentially deceptive spiritual forces trying to lead people away from the one true narrow path. That tension, it's profound.
Okay, so that tension, that really difficult ethical problem, of condemning the good person who's outside your specific group. That seems like the perfect launch pad for the second framework. How do you hold on to the idea that your faith holds the fullest truth, but avoid condemning everyone else?
You crack the door open a bit.
You crack the door open. Okay.
And that's where inclusivism comes in. It's often called the core periphery model. It's an attempt, really, to reconcile the specificity of one's own revelation with the deep conviction that the divine or ultimate reality is fundamentally loving and just.
Meaning it wouldn't just arbitrarily doom someone because of where they happen to be born.
Exactly. It wouldn't make salvation dependent purely on the accident of birth into a particular culture.
So how does that work? Is there an analogy people use?
The classic one is the sun in the window.
Okay.
Imagine your specific tradition, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, whatever is the sun. It's the fullest, most direct source of light, the complete revelation. But the light of the divine isn't only found there. It's also mediated, maybe partially or differently, through other windows. Those are the other cultures and religious traditions.
Ah, okay. So the light still gets through elsewhere, just maybe filtered.
Precisely. And this view, unlike exclusivism, can enthusiastically accept that profound spiritual experiences in other faiths are genuine. They're seen as real rays of truth, authentic works of the divine, proving that God, or the ultimate, is active everywhere.
That sounds like it required some significant shifts, especially within traditions that had strong exclusivist roots. Like you mentioned the Catholic Church earlier.
Oh, it required massive intellectual adjustments. You're right. The Catholic Church's Second Vatican Council, running from 62 to 65, was absolutely revolutionary in this regard.
How so?
Well, the document, Nostra Aetat, explicitly stated that the Church rejects nothing that is true and holy in these other religions.
Wow. That is a big shift.
It was seismic. It was a formal acknowledgement that truth, wisdom, holiness, they existed outside the visible boundaries of the Church.
And there were theologians developing these ideas too, right? I think I've heard of the anonymous Christian.
Yes, that was the theologian Karl Rahner, a hugely influential figure. He developed this concept, suggesting that someone living a life of genuine love, service, and seeking truth within another tradition is actually implicitly responding to God's universal grace, even if they have no explicit knowledge of Christ or Christianity. They are, in a sense, an anonymous Christian.
Oh, okay, I see. It's a way to include them under the umbrella without them formally joining.
Exactly. And Rahner wasn't just making this up. He argued it was rooted in Scripture itself. Think about Romans chapter 2, where Paul talks about Gentiles, non-Jews, who don't have the written law, but show its requirements written on their hearts.
Ah, right. Acting morally even without the specific revelation.
Precisely. Their conscience guides them towards what God desires.
What's really interesting is that this kind of inclusivist thinking, this idea of partial truth elsewhere, isn't just a modern Western thing, is it?
Not at all. It's deeply embedded in some ancient traditions, particularly from India.
Right.
Well, the Rig Veda, one of the foundational Hindu scriptures, contains that incredibly famous and generous line, "Truth is one, though the sages know it variously."
Truth is one, though the sages know it variously. That's beautiful.
It is. And it inherently allows for multiple valid paths and perspectives, all pointing towards the same underlying reality. It kind of removes the need for one tradition to theologically correct another.
So inclusivism gives the believer a way to hold on to their personal conviction that their path is the fullest revelation.
Yes, the most complete.
While still genuinely validating the goodness, the truth, the spiritual experiences they see in other traditions around the world.
Exactly. It offers a balance.
Okay, that's a really flexible position, but it still kind of maintains a hierarchy, doesn't it? It's still saying, my map is the most complete one, yours has some good parts, but it's ultimately incomplete.
That's a fair critique, yes. There's still a sense of a center and a periphery.
So what if we just scrap the hierarchy entirely? What if we say every map is equally valid, maybe just drawn in a different style? That feels like it takes us to the third framework.
It does. And this one, pluralism, requires perhaps the highest degree of what philosophers call epistemic humility.
Epistemic humility, meaning?
Just that deep intellectual recognition that our finite human minds They simply cannot fully grasp, contain, or definitively define the infinite nature of ultimate reality. We just don't have the capacity.
Okay.
Pluralism really leans into that. It asserts that all the major world religions are fundamentally equally valid paths. They're just culturally specific ways of journeying towards the same transcendent reality.
And there's a famous analogy for this one too, isn't there? The elephant one.
The blind man and the elephant, yes. It's perfect for illustrating this. Each person is touching only one part of the elephant, a tusk, a leg, the side, the trunk.
Right, and describing it based on their limited experience. It's like a spear. No, it's like a tree trunk.
Exactly. Each religion, in this view, is accurately describing a part of the immense, complex reality of the divine, but doing so through its own limited cultural, historical, and linguistic filter.
So the differences in doctrine, like whether Christ is uniquely divine, or whether nirvana is ultimate emptiness, or whether Allah is absolutely one, those are seen as differences in the description shaped by human culture.
Yes, rather than fundamental differences in the ultimate destination or the reality itself.
Now, there was a key thinker associated with really pushing this view, right? Hick.
John Hick, yes, an incredibly influential philosopher of religion. He argued for what he called a Copernican revolution in theology.
Okay, Copernican-like.
Yeah.
Moving the earth from the center.
Precisely. He said we need to shift away from a faith-centric view, he called it Ptolemaic, where our religion is the fixed center of the spiritual universe, and move towards a reality-centric view.
A reality-centric view. So God, or the ultimate real, is the sun.
Right. And all the different world faiths, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, are like planets orbiting that same shared central source.
That's a powerful image.
It is. And for the pluralist, this means that all genuine, profound spiritual experiences, a Sufi mystic feeling union with Allah, a Buddhist attaining enlightenment, a Christian experiencing the presence of Christ, they're all seen as completely authentic, valid encounters with the ultimate real.
So the validity isn't tied to the specific theological explanation they used?
No, it's found more in the effect, the spiritual transformation, the ethical fruits, the compassion it produces in the person's life. The labels become secondary.
Okay, but hang on. Doesn't this approach run into its own philosophical problem? If you say every path is equally valid, doesn't that kind of empty out the specific, exclusive claims that are often central to these religions? You know, the unique miracles, the specific historical events. Don't they lose their ultimate meaning? Does it dilute the concept of truth?
That is absolutely the main critique leveled against pluralism. And the pluralist has to acknowledge that, yes, it requires a shift in how you view those specific claims.
How so?
They tend to be seen more as mythopoetic language, powerful, culturally necessary narratives, symbols, stories that convey deep truths about the human condition and the divine.
Rather than as literal, exclusive, historical, or scientific fact claims.
Exactly. It demands that the specific doctrinal details often have to yield to the broader ethical mandate and the shared goal of connection with the ultimate. The focus shifts from doctrinal correctness to ethical and spiritual outcome.
Which probably explains why pluralists often point to historical moments where different faiths did manage to coexist and learn from each other.
Precisely. Like the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago back in 1893, which was a landmark event promoting this idea of unity and diversity.
Swami Vivekananda was there, right?
He was. Or think about the Convivencia in medieval Spain in Andalusia, where for a time Jewish, Christian, and Muslim scholars were actually living together, dialoguing, translating texts, debating philosophy.
A golden age of interfaith exchange.
In many ways, yes. And pluralists argue that even the sacred texts themselves sometimes hint at this possibility.
Where?
Well, you could look at the Quran again, Surah 5, verse 48, which actually praises the diversity of scriptures given to different communities as guidance and light from the one divine source. And then it adds significantly, had Allah willed, he would have made you one nation.
Implying that the diversity itself might be intended.
That's the pluralist reading, yes. That diversity is part of the divine plan, perhaps to test us or enrich us.
And in the Christian context, is there anything used to support this?
Often, Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan is highlighted.
Ah, yes, where the religious insiders walk by, but it's the Samaritan, the religious outsider, who shows true compassion and is held up as the example.
Exactly. The emphasis shifts to ethical action, loving your neighbor, rather than just correct religious identity or belief. It serves as a powerful anchor for a more pluralistic view focused on shared ethics.
Okay, wow. So 3 distinct frameworks. Exclusivism, only one correct map. Inclusivism, one map is complete. Others show partial routes. And pluralism, many equally good maps. all leading to the same mountain peak.
That's a good summary. 3 different logical solutions to the same problem of diversity.
And thinking about them not just as theories, but as tools, you can really see how they've played out historically, can't you?
Absolutely. This is where the rubber really meets the road. When you look at history, rigid, uncompromising exclusivism has undeniably fueled conflict. Things like the Crusades, forced conversions, religious persecution. But then you see moments where shifts towards inclusivism or even pluralism have occurred, and they tend to build bridges. Think about Pope John Paul II organizing that World Day of Prayer for Peace in Assisi in 1986. Bringing leaders from many different faiths together to pray side by side.
Right, a very symbolic act of acknowledging shared values.
A hugely symbolic act. So the practical utility of understanding these frameworks isn't really about achieving absolute doctrinal certainty for yourself. It's more about how we navigate our human relationships in a diverse world.
And maybe the focus shifts then, away from who has the right doctrine towards something else.
That's what many modern comparative thinkers suggest. They argue the true test bypasses doctrine almost entirely and focuses squarely on the ethical fruits a tradition produces.
Meaning.
Does this path, does this belief system actually yield genuine compassion, love, service, justice in the lives of its followers and in the world? That becomes the metric, a kind of ethical pragmatism that potentially transcends the theological disagreements.
So exploring and acknowledging the profound beauty or wisdom you might see in another tradition, it doesn't necessarily have to threaten your own faith.
Not at all. In fact, it can deepen it. It might challenge you to understand and embody your own path more fully, more authentically.
Yeah.
It connects back to that idea we mentioned earlier, intellectual humility.
Like that line from the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 13. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror.
Then we shall see face to face. Exactly. It's an acknowledgement that right now, all of us, regardless of our tradition, are operating with limited vision, seeing only partial reflections of an infinite reality.
So that maybe unsettling feeling that might have sparked someone listening to even seek out this kind of deep dive, that discomfort with diversity, is not something to run from.
I'd say it's actually a gift. It's a prompt, a call to move beyond maybe simple inherited comfort zones and to engage more critically, but also more compassionately, with the sheer reality of global human diversity.
So the central choice before you, the listener, seems pretty clear then, framed by these 3 options. When you look at your own path, your own beliefs, do you view them as the only correct answer?
Exclusivism.
Or the fullest, most complete answer, while others have partial truth?
Inclusivism.
Or simply one valid answer among many potential paths?
Pluralism.
And that leads us right to the final thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Something to really mull over.
I think so. It's this. The staggering diversity of humanity itself is something affirmed in multiple sacred texts. You mentioned the Quran saying, God made us into nations and tribes that you may know one another. Or the Bible in Galatians emphasizing unity in Christ that transcends labels like Jew nor Gentile, slave nor free, male and female. This very diversity, this complex tapestry of human belief and culture, it seems intended, and it inherently tests our souls.
So the ultimate question isn't just theoretical.
Not at all. The ultimate question for you, the learner, the seeker, is how does your chosen path, whichever framework you lean towards, actually prepare you, not just for some potential hereafter, but for immediate, loving, constructive engagement with the beautiful, complex, often challenging reality of global human diversity right now?
That feels like where the real wisdom has to be found.
I believe it is.